Today, I'm given the opportunity to look at how nanotechnology will impact cybersecurity, and of course, how it translates into the human resource required to manage the risk and opportunity. Madam Moderators touched on the IoT aspect. I briefly mentioned to her before coming on stage that the world is fast adopting IoT, Internet of Things. But I beg to differ. I said, hey, wait a sec. IoT can only be realized if there is nanotechnology into it, because we're looking at IoT, Internet of Nano Things. The reason being, IoT can only be fully realized with the deployment or proliferation of sensors. Without sensors, there'll be no data. No data, no big data. No big data, nothing to process, no information, and no response. Across the infrastructure, from sensing to data processing and response, there is an information risk, cybersecurity risk, etc. And the reason why we need to go to nano, you look at around you. The last thing you want to do is to have your sensors collecting data to be intrusive or invasive. You want those sensors to be seamlessly embedded into your daily lives. Part of your clothes, part of the walls, part of the body structure of your car. That translates to ubiquitous sensing, and that translates into huge amount of data, bigger than big data. From the human resource perspective, or from Nano Malaysia perspective here, we are assisting companies to adopt the IoT projects. In fact, we have deployed two. One in the smart transportation and one in agriculture. From that perspective, we're deploying lots of sensors collecting data. From the human resource perspective, when I do get people to come on board to manage these projects, the person or the persons or the team need to be fully cognizant about the amount of data. Understanding that these data are sensitive because they have value to the ones who are requiring the data for processing. So cognizant about this, they need to understand about the level of security needs to be undertaken and deployed from sensing all the way to where it can be processed as such. So from my personal perspective, from what I've done for the past few years in the nanotechnology space, is squarely looking at the technical competency in the cybersecurity domain. They need to understand the evolution of the hardware, evolution of the software in the cybersecurity, and how it will impact in terms of the transfer and managing data from end to end. So that is key. Because when the technology evolves, here we're touching on cutting edge, they must always be sensitive to the movement of technology. So having said that, having a degree or background in technology is not enough. You must have other skills, i.e. the sensitivity to learn, to adapt, and to see what is in the next horizon. So that will be my first opening, first blood to draw in this afternoon. Thank you.
I think you had brought up a very differing view, which I think is going to strike many heads to start thinking. And I'm very proud to say that, you know, coming from the educational background, you need to continuously evolve. I think the era, the time it completely requires that we need to evolve where education is concerned. With that said, we cannot be having a traditional approach to education where you read books and you sit for exams. I think that complete approach firstly needs to change. We need to embark on having practicing skills that are embedded within the academic curriculum to ensure that the people that come out, students that come out, professionals that come out do so with adequate skills, both academically and practical skills imbibed. For this, I know that there are many platforms for cybersecurity professionals to actually go out there. There are virtual labs that are available for them to go ahead and practice their skills, go on and on and on, repetitively being, going out there into the cyber range and making their practices known. Well, in our case, we have, this is the same reason for which we have come up with our programs, which is both the bachelor's degrees and our master's degrees that we have both have these embodiments within the degrees where we have academic and practicing skills there. So this is very critical to ensure that it has both of it.
Right, so you do agree that the professional skill set become the tangible evidence for them to prove, yes, I have this set of skills and knowledge that can actually help them to be employed.
Absolutely. I think a combination of both, and this is where we need to ensure that those changes do take place.
Basically, the size of an organization, the number of security professionals are equally important to address the issues, the threats that organization is facing. But this is when we need the right people with the right skill set on the job. So in banking, for example, the risk governance guidelines has mentioned that security is basically everybody's responsibility. So we've got that 3 levels of defense, where the first level will be the source departments itself. They need to be trained on how to identify risk, how to assess their own risk, so that the empowerment of risk identification is now cascaded down to the department level. So you do not need that many security professionals or people on the job, but you need the right people with the right skill set. So the second level would be where the security professionals are coming in. And I agree with the panelists that the certifications, the experience, the knowledge plays a great role in ensuring success of a security organization, because they need to understand what they are doing, basically the exposure on risk management, as well as the technical domain that they are specializing in.
Of course, when you're talking about relevant information security skills, we always need to start with the fundamentals. That's what the university provides. Yeah, most graduates from university, they do have fundamental skills. That means you need skills in technical skills, broad-based technical skills. We have specialists in security. We also have communication skills, which is very important. And of course, finally, once they graduate, they have to actually get practical experiences, like Madam Lata said, Dr. Rizal said, as well as Puan Rizita said. Practical experience comes in at a very high value, because nothing teaches you as on-the-job training or the school of hard knocks. Yeah, the school of hard knocks. But on the flip side, putting too much emphasis on practical experiences also you have to balance it out. Yeah, you need to balance it out with formal education also, because we have seen people who they are very good, very experienced, but they have no formal background. So some companies may value this, but when it comes to what we said earlier in the terms of auditing compliance, you're saying that you need to have your supply chain all audited. We've had cases where ISO, they came to the university and say that you've not vetted your supply chain for university. So we were wondering, what do you mean by supply chain for university? Who supplies to university besides the computers and all that? Apparently, part of the supply chain includes our companies that gives our students training. So they are part of the supply chain. It's very important that we actually vet them to make sure that they actually provide the proper training, the proper experiences, the proper guidance, so that they actually learn what they need to learn and be able to go out into the industry with the proper experiences. Because we've had cases where students, they learn nothing. They'll just be made to make coffee. I'm not joking. They'll be made to make photo set stuff, organize events, almost irrelevant to what they are specializing in.
And they get paid for it?
Some of them get paid nothing.
Nothing.
So you see, the practical experience is good, but formal education you need to know how to balance the two. It's very important.
In our part, acting as on behalf of the government, managing projects with the industry, information is key. And having a high level of security to ensure that confidentiality is key to our business model. So having said that, you must, first of all, you must inculcate the culture of understanding what is risk, especially information risk. Culture is important because for you to get people on board, they need to embrace voluntarily. So the value of understanding the so-called high value of information, data, and whatnot is embedded in our selection process. Because we're dealing with a document which is governed by NDAs. And NDAs is translated into critical information is only you and the client, which you need to protect it within a confinement or certain agreement. Having breached that due to carelessness is intolerable as such. So number one, through selection process, the candidates that we screen must understand these are the core values of the organization as such. But also you touch on the fact that awareness, right? People say, awareness campaign. This is just another thing that just to get people together, team building, whatnot. But to me, I beg to differ. It does create the continuous, management of what we have embedded in the first place, i.e. the value that we have put as a screening criteria for them to come on board. Secondly, is having the right system. So having the right values, having this continuous reminder is one thing. Secondly, the system must be in place, the information infrastructure as such. Secured document management is one thing. How you actually label document from end to end. If there is a procurement, I were to raise a procurement, I have to send to the CFO for his approval. There must be a process. Even you're using hardware or hard copy management, everything must be tagged accordingly. If you want to go to paperless, you must put in place certain level of security to ensure that only certain people have certain access to that level of information as such. For me, I have access to all. C-1, access to a certain extent. So those must be in place.
Basically, information security, cybersecurity, business continuity, risk management are all interconnected. You can't live without each other. Being a bank mandated by Bank Negara, so it makes the culture development easier for banks, especially a Japanese bank, where culture is kind of mandatory. I would like to touch on the information assets. It's vital for banks to identify asset owners and things like that, so that we know these owners would be the one to identify who can access the data, who can control, or how the data is being accessed, used or stored in the organization, be it whether in IT or in cyber world, or whether it's hard copy. So definitely business continuity, there must be a program to ensure that whatever risks that arise, either from cybersecurity or any other risk elements, are being looked at and managed, and contingency procedures are in place.
So if you embed that into their KRA or KPI, KRA, KPI, and how do you think the acceptance level would be to the people? To the people like, I'm a front desk teller, why are you putting, cybersecurity in my KPI?
Because running a bank, you can't run away from risk. So identify, like I was saying, the risk governance, we've got 3 levels. The first level is where the source department, they need to identify, because they are the one who's doing the job. They would understand better what risk they are facing in their business processes. So putting in KPI for their area would not be something a burden or new. It's something kind of acceptable in risk culture nowadays, especially in banking.
When it comes to academic degrees, what we're looking at is a very holistic approach to cybersecurity, if I can just speak for cybersecurity. So you're going to be doing many things that you would cover in many certifications. So it's very holistic in the amount or the quantity what you would be learning. At the same time, certifications are very, very good, and they're very specialized. So they harness a specialized skill in an employee. And that's the core difference between, but I would want to advocate, and this is just a personal opinion, I feel that an information security, especially on an executive or an upper level management, should have a degree, a bachelor's or a master's degree, and somewhat towards a cyber affiliation. So that would definitely cover. Now, we also need to understand that not all cybersecurity job roles are technical in nature. We have got policies, procedures, we've got administrative elements within an organization that actually do not require a very technical approach. And of course, then we have those people that are actually defending an organization which would need very hands-on, critical, defender skills within their job roles.
Job role, yeah.
So again, it goes back to me, I would feel that you have an MBBS degree, and then you have a cardiology, you've specialized in cardiology. So your degree in cybersecurity, and then you would top it up with certifications from ISO qualified companies that would further add value to what you have.